Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military of a Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 8th of November of 2025. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk once again about massive missile and drone attack across Ukraine that took place between the 7th and the 8th of November of 2025. Once again, the Russians attacked this night the Ukrainian energy infrastructure, the critical infrastructure, and this morning several pro-Ukrainian sources published this picture where we can see the approximate roads of missiles and drones that were attacking Ukraine. And as you can see, according to this picture, mainly the Russians were attacking the eastern part and the central part. Lots of explosions were recorded. As for different videos and pictures, we haven't received much. For example, we have this video that we have already discussed. Here we can see how Russians were attacking the Pokrovsk thermal power plant. After this attack, as a result of the attack, the right bank part of Dnipropetrovsk was completely without power, according to local media. Furthermore, the Russians were attacking the city of Pavlograd, also some energy facilities. According to this picture, we can see that something very far from this point was destroyed with Russian attack. And just during the day, we received just one video from the territory of the settlement by the name of Slobozhanske. So this is the Slobozhanske power plant, and as a result of attack, the power plant was very damaged. And the sources are saying that right after this attack, power outages occurred. So the Russians attacked not just power plants. This is a very important thing. The Russians also were attacking gas transportation and gas processing plants. So the Russians attacked the gas processing plants in the Kharkiv region in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Bedryahi. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the gas processing plant in the area of the settlement by the name of Belsk, and the Russians destroyed the gas station, the gas transportation system in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Stara Nikolaevka. Huge power anomalies were recorded according to different media, according to different sources. So this is the situation. Another important thing that today the Ukrainian sources reported that attack was the biggest and the most powerful attack since the beginning of the special military operation. The Ukrainians suffered huge destructions along the critical infrastructure. Also, the sources reported that Russians used 500 air targets, missiles and drones together, and the Ukrainian sources are saying that during the previous attack, the Russians used the biggest number of missiles. The Russians used 3 Caliber cruise missiles, 10 Iskander-K missiles, 7 hypersonic Kinzhal missiles, and 25 Iskander-M ballistic missiles. And the Ukrainians are saying that they were not ready to this number of missiles. The Ukrainians probably found a solution how to bring down Russian drones, but they were not ready for this amount of missiles. Anyway, that was a very powerful attack from the Russian side. And now let's wait and see what is going to be next. Now we are going to talk about the situation on the ground, and before we start, once again, I would like to point your attention to a very interesting meeting that took place between Zelensky and Andrei Ignatov. So the person in front of your screens is Andrei Ignatov. He is the chief of the General Staff of Ukraine Armed Forces. And today he announced certain decisions regarding Pokrovsk, which will be announced later. So let's discuss this in details, and then I will try to explain you what exactly Zelensky and Andrei Ignatov were talking about. So he told Zelensky, face to face, he told Zelensky that all decisions regarding this operation will be made by the military command. This is definitely not a public matter, but the public will be informed about the consequences of these decisions when they are made and when they can be made public. Currently, unnecessary information publicly will certainly not facilitate the execution of our troops' missions. So these are the words of him. And right during this meeting, Zelensky, he was sitting right in front of him. He stopped him. Just take a look at his hands. He asked him just to stop. I will start talking. This is what he was trying to send message with these movements of his hands. And Zelensky stated that Putin could also use the capture of Pokrovsk as an excuse to persuade the West to pressure Kiev to withdraw Ukrainian troops from the Donetsk region. I think Russia, with this Pokrovsk story, is trying to show success on the battlefield. Then they might try to bring back the narrative that we will seize Donbass for the president and Ukrainians to leave Donbass, force the president and Ukrainians to leave Donbass because we will seize eastern Ukraine anyway. force him, and then we will come to an agreement among ourselves. This is a factor that could influence the imposition of sanctions on the postponement of sanctions and so on. So what is exactly these two persons we're talking about? First of all, you need to understand that this is not just the video where the president of Ukraine and the chief of the general staff of Ukraine were talking about the city of Pokrovsk, we're talking about sanctions. Not. This is a public conflict. This is a public conflict between military authorities and political authorities of Ukraine. So I will try to translate to you what exactly the chief of the general staff of the Ukraine Armed Forces was telling Zelensky. He told him, listen to me, Vova, Vladimir Zelensky, listen to me. We will not hold Pokrovsk because you want this. We will not pay with lives of our soldiers because you have political ambitions. And you need to understand clearly that if we decide to abandon Pokrovsk, we will do this, and we will inform you about this when we decide it's good to inform you about the situation. We will not hold Pokrovsk due to your political ambitions, and this is the point. We, the Ukrainian military command, will make this decision, not you. So this is the message that was sent to Zelensky today, and this is a huge probably insult of Zelensky. And take a look at Zelensky, and I would like to explain to you what exactly he was saying to this commander-in-chief. He told him, okay, if you withdraw troops from Pokrovsk without my, let's say, permission, without making me knowing about the situation, you need to understand, then I will be forced to go to the United States of America, to Brussels, to Washington, and then, for example, the president of the United States of America will tell me that, Zelensky, you abandoned the city of Pokrovsk without showing any resistance, so maybe you will abandon the entire Donbass region without resistance, so maybe there is no need to impose additional sanctions against Russia, maybe you will not be able to do anything with them. So think about this, because you lose Pokrovsk, then you will lose Slavyansk, then you will lose Kramatorsk. So what is the point to show any resistance to Russians? So Zelensky is trying to tell Commander-in-Chief that everything is not so simple, that the lives of Ukrainian soldiers is not the only thing that currently we discuss. We discuss the entire picture. If you abandon the city of Pokrovsk, I cannot guarantee you that the Western countries will not force us, me and you together, to abandon the entire Donbass region and maybe even more. So this is a very interesting conflict, obviously very interesting how the conflict is going to be finished, but telling the truth, after the Ukrainians and Ukrainian generals suffered lots of problems and got huge experience after the Battle of Bakhmut, after the Battle of Mariupol, Kurachovo, Ugledar, Великая Михайловка, Великая Новоселовka, Belogorovka, Severodonetsk, Kupiansk, and many other different towns and cities. They came to one conclusion, that the most important thing is to save lives of soldiers, but not to fulfill or not to allow anybody to have political ambitions. Political ambitions in the situation, the front line, cannot stay together. These completely different things, and they cannot be at the same place. So this is the situation, this is the point, and this is a very interesting piece of news. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions once again. According to information we have, the group of forces east of the armed force of the Russian Federation managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Vovcha. So the village was captured today. This information was confirmed both by the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation and by different pro-Russian sources. Here we can see how exactly the clashes and the battle for the territory of the settlement was taking place between Russians and Ukrainians, how Russians were securing and clearing this territory. So based on this video and based on the report of the Minister of Defense, we have adjusted the map. So we see that the Russians continue advancing in the northwestern direction, and it seems that from this perspective the Russians are tasked not just to capture the settlement of Vovcha, most likely, and it seems that the Russians are planning to try to cross the river of Volcha with the purpose to capture the settlement of Velika Mikhailovka. So it seems that the Russians are becoming more and more serious in possible offensive operation deep inside of the Dnipropetrovsk region. So it seems that the Dnipro offensive operation could happen if Zelensky doesn't accept the demands and terms of Russian Federation. The Russians may begin offensive deep inside of the Dnipro with completely different demands to end the conflict. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the city of Pokrovsk. During the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything additional, everything that we discussed during the previous video. The Russians improved their positions in the northeastern part of the settlement by taking under complete control the citadel, the last citadel of the city of Pokrovsk. So this territory, as you can see, was colored by, according as a gray zone due to first reports about complete control of this territory by Russians. Furthermore, the Russians continue offensive operation along the entire perimeter of the city of Mirnograd, but I would like to remind you and to point your attention once again, the Russians are not tasked to reduce the city of Mirnograd to ruins with Ukrainian soldiers inside of there. The Russians are tasked to force Ukrainians to fall back in this area. The Russians are trying to do one thing. They want to concentrate in this area, in this square, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5,000 soldiers, as many as possible Ukrainian soldiers in this pocket. Not, let's say, with the purpose to destroy this pocket, but to surround them and to probably give them a chance to choose, let's say, surrender than to continue fighting. The Russians need a picture. They need a picture. They need a picture of thousands of prisoners of war from Ukrainian side. They need to use this picture. Putin needs this picture. Then with this video to go to Washington, to Brussels. I don't know, not there, of course. He will never go there. But to Budapest, to Hungary. Putin wants, with the video of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers surrendering the Russians, to go to Hungary to show this video to Donald Trump. Maybe Putin will bring these 3,000 or 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers to Hungary, and he will give these soldiers to the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, and he would say that I have finished 8 wars and I have released the thousands of prisoners of war. So this is the scenario. This is exactly what he wants, what the Russian president wants, and this can allow him to probably to reduce the supply and support of Kiev, of Ukraine, and this can of course lead to probably the complete collapse and to the end of this conflict. So this is the plan. This is the plan of the Russian side, and we see that the Russians are moving in the direction to complete this task. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next. Currently, the number of Ukrainians who are currently located on the territory of this cauldron is unknown. Maybe 1,000, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe several hundreds. Very difficult to say, but this is the situation. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Konstantinovka direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their positions along N20 road from the area of Alexandra Kalinova. We haven't been receiving anything from this area for a very long period of time, but due to the fact that the Russians are finishing the battle for the village of Ivanovka and for the southeastern part of the city of Konstantinovka, it's logical that the Russians will start offensive operation along N20 road with the purpose to attack the city of Konstantinovka also from the southwest. I believe that we should expect the same tactics in the city of Konstantinovka as the Russians are implementing on the territory of Pokrovsk, with infiltration of hundreds of soldiers deep inside of the city of Konstantinovka until the Russian forces are able to get this red line. These infiltration groups will create something like a buffer, something like a zone between main Ukrainian positions and the city of Konstantinovka itself. And while Ukrainians will try to break through this buffer zone, Russians will secure the city itself. So it will take time, obviously, but this is probably the most effective tactics that the Russians have created since the beginning of the special military operation. As for the Seversk-Liman direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received almost anything. We had lots of videos with drones how Russians were attacking logistics of the armored forces of Ukraine across the entire territory, across the entire front line, but without changes on the ground. Most likely there are very heavy clashes, and most likely the Russians are waiting. They're waiting when the battle, or when the main battle, part of the battle for let's say Pokrovsk finishes, when the main battle main part of the battle for the city of Kupiansk finishes, and only then the Russians will intensify their activities. They are regrouping right now. There are lots of things to do. There are still questions about the city of Yampol, Liman, Seversk, so the Russians are regrouping, but it will not take too much time. As for the Kupiansk direction, during the previous 24 hours, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that Ukrainians made lots of attempts to break through the encirclement with lots of units and vehicles, but the Russians are saying that most of those attempts were repelled along the river Oskol. The Ukrainians are not able to cross the river with the purpose to get the side that is not under control of the Russian Federation. It's very difficult and very complicated. The Russians established complete FPV drone control over the river and over the main river crossings without any chances for Ukrainians. Furthermore, today several sources reported that by the end of the 8th of November of 2025, the Russians have established control for more than 52% of the city, and the Russians continue advancing. I would like to remind you just that according to different commanders who are currently located on the ground from the Russian side, they told us that the city of Kupiansk would be secured within the next 7 days. So 2 days of these 7 days have already passed, so it means that in 5 days, according to several pro-Russian sources, the city of Kupiansk would be secured completely. And that's it for today. Military with Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye-bye.